we're in uncharted territory.
How so?
Just constitutes a car cockpit now, and what do we expect it to do besides drive the car? It's crazy. As autonomy becomes more and more real, it unlocks the ability for more and more um, uh, features and experiences, right? So if I get to a level 3 autonomy where I don't have to have eyes on the road.
Yeah.
Well, let's crack open the YouTube. Let's start gaming. Let's start doing a Zoom.
So true or false? Would you say building an entirely new car at a Mazda or a Volkswagen is a challenge?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you think about how that happens at a big car company, it's a big effort. When they say, you know what, we're stopping with this platform or this generation, we're going to start a whole new drivetrain, whole new suspension, whole new platform, whole new technology. Yeah, that's a big planning effort in a big car company. That's a 5 to 7 year prospect.
Okay, so now that we understand that,
Yeah.
how is the process of developing from scratch? How is it different?
Probably the biggest difference is just a very focused mindset where you're saying, okay, what are the specific things we're trying to do? Build a small team to do it, and the decision making is literally like 3 people of what that can become. When you do that in a big car company, it's departments and marketing and planning and research and benchmarking and it's a whole just huge thing that comes in place that's like a filter.
So does that mean you're saying it's actually easier to do this?
Um, if you have the funding and the knowledge, I think it is a better environment to
Yeah.
do something innovative. Yes, I do.
Okay.
If you're the right team, and you have the funding to do it, it is a better environment to innovate. Yes.
Okay, so for this discussion, because we already had a discussion about funding in a separate episode, for this discussion, let's just assume we've got the right team. 'Cause
Yeah.
we know you. And assume that we've got the funding, which you told us in another episode. What are 3 things that would be easier on this side of the fence than, say, doing this at Volkswagen?
I would say kind of first of all determining where you want the car to sit and what you want the car attributes to be, right? So we knew we were going after kind of reinvention of the luxury sedan as a reason for it to exist. Doing that in a big car company with a legacy of building luxury sedans would be really tough to do, I would imagine, So you say, okay, we're going to occupy this space. What's going to be special about it? Well, we're going to keep it mid-size in its overall size because that's what fun sports sedans are usually the medium-sized ones. It's not the big, long.
What's the wheelbase on this?
Wheelbase is 20. Oh, God. Don't quote me on this. I don't want to get it wrong. I'm already on my SUV project.
Okay, how about this? I'll make it easier to answer. Is the wheelbase closer to a 5 Series or a 7 Series?
A 5 Series, yeah. It's almost
So
it's
about
almost
118.
Yeah, it's about the same as a Model S. This car is smaller in length than Tesla Model S. It's about the same as a Taycan.
Wow.
So it's a compact. It's relatively compact, so that's why it gets its kind of a little bit M5 driving dynamics because the car is not a big beast of a car. It's just determining and kind of laying out what you want that vehicle to be. In our case, mid-sized. I would call it mid-sized. So that's E-Class, that's Audi A6, that's 5 Series in length, full size on the interior. So we have back seat space comparable to long wheelbase S-Class Mercedes.
122-inch wheelbase. So that's
Now,
4 inches difference between a 5 Series and an S-Class.
Correct.
So quite a big difference between what the car looks like, meaning the footprint, as opposed to packaging space.
Exactly. Then you toss in, you know what, we're also going to go the farthest on a charge and use the least amount of energy per mile of any electric vehicle that's ever existed.
You're saying to be able to optimize efficiency, that's easier at a startup than a legacy car company.
I think it is when you have total control over the destiny of the project, meaning a small group of people with a really focused idea are in complete control of what the product's going to become.
When you say complete control, meaning you are design, engineering, and building it in-house.
Yes, defining it, designing it, and building it in-house. And it's all of our technology. We're not buying that in.
Okay, so I don't know if you can answer this because you're Mr. Design, and you told me in another episode that you're not Mr. Math. How much difference in price does it cost to define to building that process? How much more is that than, say, buying it off the shelf?
Off
Like
the top of my head,
double, orders of magnitude more, 25% more?
I'd probably say it's a 30%, 40%, but that's very difficult for me to say, because
Maybe I'll talk to
you could
Peter about
probably
that.
argue that in the long run there's actually savings.
I was just going to say,
You
that
know,
would be the River Rouge concept,
yeah,
where you build everything under one roof. If you sell enough of them,
yeah.
your unit cost goes
I
down.
think that's more the way to look at it. That this is a long-term investment in our business, so it gives us a technology edge that strikes at the heart of EV. So that's efficiency, that's space efficient, and it's performance.
So you had told me that you're building a SUV, or you've announced an SUV. Is that going to ride on the same platform?
It'll be a shared component, but it's not exactly the same platform.
Okay, so now let's switch gears. Three things that are more difficult to accomplish when coming up with an entirely new car at a startup as opposed to a legacy manufacturer.
Yeah, so obvious stuff is like we talked about. Funding is really challenging. Always having enough funds to really accelerate. Building the team while you're developing the car is really hard because you don't have the team necessarily in place as you're trying to accelerate the program. You don't even have the processes for the team to operate under
Well,
yet.
let's separate that out. When you say building a team, meaning is it hard to hire talent and retain talent
Yeah,
because people don't want to go to a startup?
partly. Yeah, takes a certain type, willing to take the risk. So seeking those people out that have the experience and talent,
Mm-hmm.
that are willing to take the risk
Mm-hmm.
is difficult. It's not easy. So you have to find the right people. You have to put them in place while you're working, while you're trying to move the program forward, and then you're also, like I said, trying to create processes to get through the different gateways you need to keep the program on time and moving forward in a schedule.
And who creates those processes?
It's kind of everybody. The different departments come together. We've all done it before in big
Mm-hmm.
car companies, but most cases we didn't have to create the processes, right? Fortunately, it's a small team. We're all in one space.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of this stuff happens organically, but it does have to mature over time. And I've seen those waves of maturity happen at the company as we've grown, as we've gone from 130 people to 300 people to 1,000
Mm-hmm.
people to, thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
You see each phase requires another maturity, step.
When you got there, how many people were at the company?
Less than 100.
That was 6.5 years ago.
Yeah,
So you're like employee 80, something like
something like that, right around that.
that. And how many at the company now?
Over 4,000. But that's also,
Including manufacturing.
yeah, that's a big part of that's manufacturing and retail.
Okay, so now let's switch gears a little bit. You guys did something interesting here. Put aside, some of the details of design on the car. You have built, from what I could see, your own UX. It
Mhm.
looks to be your own software, your own design of UX. Why did you go with this homegrown thing as opposed to buying something off the shelf or even partnering with, say, an Android Auto?
Yeah. So it runs off of an Android Auto software
Mm-hmm.
platform, but it's entirely our interface, our layout. It's not like an embedded Android UX.
Mm-hmm.
We're just running off of a Android software. I think it's because we had a pretty unique idea for the layout. So, anytime you start to lay out an automotive interior, the displays and the vehicle interface
Mm-hmm.
is kind of the primary thing you first have to figure out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in our case, we knew we wanted to have a very driver-centric experience. So, hey, rather than trying to do the traditional binnacle style thing, let's have a curved display that completely immerses the driver, is ergonomically effective, and so that's how we came up with this curved display. No need for any kind of shading or hood. We're just going to let it float, and it's actually three displays under one seamless piece of glass. That was really truly the first of its kind when we launched it. And then we have the secondary display in the center console, which is for both driver and passenger. So with that layout, that already requires a proprietary user experience, that is specifically for that layout, for that format. And that just didn't exist. We had to start from scratch.
So 2 questions there. Is the UX team under your purview or engineering?
It's under my team.
And number 2, from the minute go to the minute that thing started working, how long did it take to develop this system?
Oh, gosh. 2.5 years, I would say, of solid.
And how long would that have taken at Volkswagen or Mazda?
From scratch?
From scratch.
Probably around that,
okay,
2 or 3
so
years.
about the same.
Yeah. The fact of the matter is, and this is some insight, I think, is that the UX software component of the company was after the design and mechanical engineering and drivetrain technology. They came later in the game, kind of by necessity, right? Because we were first engineering and designing the platform and the drivetrain components, and then the software element came a little bit later than that. We had a really ramp up, if you will, for the last 2 years, I would say, where we really got into that process.
Now, we were talking at lunch just before this, our Raising Cane's lunch, which,
yes.
Would you agree, fantastic?
Fantastic.
Yes.
I'll be back.
Okay. See, you're welcome.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much.
You have a couple of folks from not car companies, some folks from Apple.
Yeah.
Was that for just the UX or other aspects of the car?
I think it was other aspects. We were really fortunate. This gentleman, Michael Bell, joined, and I think that happened in late 19, early 2000. Came on board, super experienced, worked under Steve Jobs, worked on the iPhone, total bunch of other products. And then he brought some folks with him as well. And I think having folks from that consumer electronics side of things that specifically have that really...
and he wasn't working on UX?
So he had worked on UX, but he's got a broad software experience. And then my UX UI team, of course, works together with him the same way my design team works together with the chassis engineers and the interior engineers. It's a symbiotic relationship.
What's the makeup of that UX team? Do they mainly come from other car manufacturers, or do they come from consumer goods type companies?
It's a mix. Yeah, I have some folks that are hard car automotive that have Mercedes, Ford, experience, or they have navigation experience from some of the nav suppliers. That's super important because the challenges around in-car user experience are totally unique to the car, and the having that experience on the team is super important. Conversely, we have folks from other realms too, Apple, Samsung. Again, kind of navigation companies. We have some Samsung experience as well. Trying to think.
And did you, by design, try to split up the team that way?
Not necessarily. I mean, I've got folks, they're all working together, but the team is made up of research and testing, UX, who's really developing the flow of interactions and the models for menus, and UI, so the graphic design component of and animations, things like that, the actual graphic look and feel that is aligned with our overall brand tonality.
Okay, so you and I now need to have a difficult discussion. I don't know how much you know, but I have a unusual history in cars UX where people don't pay attention.
Right.
Let's just say I'm the poster child.
Right.
For what can happen when people do not pay attention.
Right.
Why is it companies like yours and others are completely removing toggle switches, knobs, buttons out of the car?
Glad you asked that, because I think that there has been this rush to, and I think we're kind of conditioned through the devices in our lives that as we went through the touch screen transition with specifically our phones, but even we're seeing it with tablets, computers, and so on. There became this rush to eliminate all button interface in the car. Now, there's a certain logic to that, and that is the ability to update that and evolve that over time. And we've seen that through over-the-air updates. And there's
Is there also an aspect that it's cheaper to manufacture?
Oh, for sure, yeah. But you are able to kind of refresh the experience over time. So there's an appeal to that. That said, we took from day one, a strict philosophy that we were not going to go buttonless, that we're still going to have strong tactile input for fundamental things. So door handles, window switches, steering wheel engagement for activating your ADAS systems, volume control, any kind of input for media, track, select, so on, temperature up and down, fan up and down, volume control. Like some fundamental things still can be...
Is it a knob in this car?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We have toggles right through the middle of the car for passenger, driver, fan up, fan down, temp up, temp down.
And it's a hard button.
It's a physical button. And it was exactly that dialogue that I don't want to have to go through the menu just to get the fan up 2 notches when the car's 110 on a hot Arizona day. You know, just get in the car and you're done. And now, of course, you can go deeper interface into the digital. But if you think about just general operation, what are some of the things you use the most? It's those steering wheel controls, it's the volume, it's temperature, it's fan.
Absolutely.
They just let me do that stuff. And then, of course, if I need to set a nav route and those things, you know, it's just there are certain things that we've all been conditioned. I mean, even your phone most likely has a on-off button. And a volume
one
control
thing for the voice, and that whether you go on stun or not.
Right.
That's the only real button it has. Frankly, I miss my. It's gonna date myself. I miss my Sidekick.
Right.
The Sidekick.
There you go.
Had the best keyboard ever.
My phone still has analog volume buttons. I don't know.
I've got that. Yeah.
You know, there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Right. But here we are rushing to take that out of the car.
I'm not just saying this because I am the poster child that was in the hospital for a month because of this, but because it's just unsafe. You're not paying attention to the road. Like the car I drove here today is a BMW. And for 20 years ago, you remember, you know, if we had known each other 20 years ago, we would be beating on BMW for that terrible iDrive system they had in that horrendously ugly bangle butt 027 series.
Yep.
But after 20 years of refining it and making it work, now it's the best combination of a user interface like a computer, the mouse type thing, which is the knob. And then everything, like you're saying, is the buttons on the steering wheel that work in conjunction with the head-up display.
Yes.
You don't have to fool with anything. And yeah, for the folks that want voice, they got voice. But what I've learned, sadly, the hard way is voice isn't there yet. You don't have a fast enough processor in any car. I don't care what it is, to handle the abilities of a car that's 4,000 pounds going down the road at 80 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You are unsafe. You are a projectile.
Yeah.
That's why I need the hard buttons.
Yeah.
And maybe this is not a question. I think this is just please, oh, please, oh, please.
We're in uncharted territory.
How so?
Just what constitutes a car cockpit now, and what do we expect it to do besides drive the car? You know, it's crazy.
And where do you see that going?
Well, it depends, because as autonomy becomes more and more real, it unlocks the ability for more and more features and experiences, right? So if I get to a level 3 autonomy where I don't have to have eyes on the road.
Yeah.
Well, let's crack open the YouTube. Let's start gaming. Let's start doing a Zoom.
Are you already thinking that?
Of course.
You're already working on that today?
Oh, yeah. I mean, aspects of it, preparing for it, you know? So that, of course, influences, well, now how are the screens placed, you know? And how big are they? And how many are there?
Okay, now that you just scared the hell out of me,
Sorry.
Now I'm going to turn this around to the audience. And you know what? Let's see what they think the future is going to be.
Yes.
I think that's the feedback we should ask for here.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, where do you see this Jetsons? I think we just dated ourselves, but Jetsons future. And what kind of stuff should he be thinking about for that level 3 autonomy and above? Let us know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoMan TV on Word, MotoMan TV on Word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I think we should give them a cliffhanger.
Okay.
So we've done now, 3 of these smaller episodes and then 1 inside the MotoMan studio. But this next one we're going to do, I think the only way to describe it is the tale of two idiots involving multiple modes of transportation,
Right.
how they get in trouble,
Oh, man.
and how they got saved by his wife.
Yes, she saved the day.
So let's not tell them anymore.
Okay.
They got to watch that episode.
Yeah.
Until we see you in the next episode. Bishop.